All right, so this says the base of a rectangle measures 3 times the square root of 20 meters and has a height of 4 times the square root of 5 meters. What is the area of the rectangle? So here we go. You get to check out my amazing drawing abilities. I'm going to draw a rectangle here. I was joking. I'm really terrible at drawing. So, so the base is 3 times the square root of 20 meters. And the height is 4 times the square root of 5 meters. And area, you just multiply the base and the height together. So the area is equal to the base times the height, or the length times the width, whatever you want to call it. So I just need to multiply these together. And the key thing when you've got radicals is you need to make sure that they're written in simplest form, which means if there's any perfect squares, you need to pull them out. So I'm going to multiply these together. So again, I'm just finding the area. So I'm going to do 3 times the square root of 20 times 4 times the square root of 5. And so let's look at these radicals and see, before you can multiply these together. So I could multiply this together and get 4 times 3 is 12. And then the 20 times 5, I can multiply together and have the radical of 100. So that is one way to do it. And in this case, that actually might be the easiest way, but sometimes that makes your life harder. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to look at each of these radicals and see if they have any factors that are perfect squares. So for 20, I can factor that into 5 times 4 because 4 is a perfect square. Now 5, its only factors are 1 and 5. That's 1 is a perfect square, but that doesn't do anything. So I can't do anything with that. So I'm going to split this up. And so what this is going to become is 3 times the square root of 4 times 5. And then this is still 4 square root of 5. And the reason I did that is because the square root of 4 is 2. So that can come out. And so then I would have 3 times 2. The 2 came from the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. And again, that's still times 4 times the square root of 5. So 3 times 2 is 6. So I'm doing a lot of extra steps here that I wouldn't do if I wasn't teaching this. And there we go. I wrote a 6 and it's a 5. I should probably just take the rest of the day off. I'm not doing very well today. So that, and then times 4 times the square root of 5. So I can multiply the 6 and the 4 together. Anything outside the radical I can multiply together. And so that gives me 24. And then whenever you have a radical times itself, like this, so the square root of 5 times the square root of 5 is just equal to 5. Or you could say, okay, the square root of 5 times the square root of 5 is the square root of 25. And what's the square root of 25? It's 5. So square root of 5 times square root of 5 is just 5. So this just becomes 24 times 5, and you multiply those together, and you get 120. Now, I just want to show you in the units there, meters squared. Back in the beginning, we simplified this square root of 20 to get 4 times 5. And I said normally I try to simplify these before I multiply them together, because I find that most of the time that creates less work for you. In this case, it actually created more work, and let me just show you. So instead, I could have said the area equals 3 times 4 would give me 12, and then the square root of 20 times the square root of 5 gives me square root of 100, and the square root of 100 is a perfect square. That's 10. So this is just 12 times 10, or 120. And so that would have been quicker in this case. I just did it this way and broke these down because a lot of times I find this actually saves you time because you're working with smaller numbers. Now, if you multiply them and it comes out to a perfect square, that's a whole different story. So there you go. So you're doing great. Keep working hard. You're on your way to mastering the math.